You're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Moline, the co-author of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors, How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I'll be sitting down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Hey, would you mind hitting that share button, comment, subscribe, one of those things, maybe a like, one of those, follow, whatever, wherever you're at, do some of those things. We always appreciate it, and it helps get our content out to more people. If you want to take the conversation beyond what you're listening to or seeing on YouTube here today, go to Facebook, type in Roofing Success, and join the Roofing Success Facebook group. Today, we're going to have a great conversation about leadership with our friend Dylan McCabe of Limitless Roofing CEO Group. How's it going today, man?
It's going good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome, man. How, if for people who aren't familiar with Limitless and what you guys do, maybe give just a brief intro on that.
Yeah, so we bring owners of roofing companies together. That's what we do. That's what we're passionate about. We started with CEO groups, and then about 8 months ago, we started working on our purchasing group, which is called the Limitless Roofing GPO.
That's awesome, man. And we met a couple of years ago at RoofCon, and we were having some conversations, and it was like, man, this is you were doing something that was unique that I don't think had maybe ever been done in contracting even, let alone the roofing space, but in a lot of, I don't know, would you say white collar industries, things like that, there are CEO groups, and these CEOs come together and they sit down and meet and have CEO level conversations with each other and throw around ideas and learn from each other and develop relationships. And I was like, how cool, like to bring that to contracting. I know the benefits that I've had in my career of being around other owners of digital marketing agencies and, sitting down and having those conversations and being able to ask them questions. Where did this start for you? We don't have to go too deep, but where did this concept start for you, and how did you bring it to, how did it come to fruition?
I've been passionate about leadership for a long time. I got a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership, and then went on to Dallas Seminary to study theology and preaching and teaching and all that stuff, but was still really focused on the leadership side, and then really felt led to get more into the business world. And so when I got into roofing, we saw this opportunity, like you said, to bring owners together in CEO groups, because one of my business mentors does that. He hosts meetings every month. He calls them shine meetings. And the idea is that he'll invite 30 people to a meeting, and he has a 30-person conference room table. He'll cater lunch. And then you can go in as a business owner and you can say, hey, look, I've got this roofing company. We've plateaued at $5 million a year, love to be making 10, 20 million a year. I've had some turnover in the sales team or whatever. And so you can share, and then everybody else sitting there gets to ask some good questions and then shine with the light of their knowledge and their experience on your situation. So by the time you leave that meeting, 90 minutes later, you have some solid feedback from savvy business owners who want to help you grow. So it's just a completely different way of running a company, running it on your own in isolation. I feel it's kind of like climbing Mount Everest on your own, right? You're pretty limited by what you can do versus climbing with a seasoned team. And so we saw an opportunity to do that roofing. We started our roofing CEO groups, and that was a couple of years ago. And people just liked it a lot. And now since then, other people have started doing more stuff like that, which is awesome.
It is. It's so powerful. And I think, even the way that this podcast started, like just in talking to roofing contractors day after day after day, and talking to some, I'm like, wow, they're like, they get it. And then I talked to others who are struggling. And the way this podcast kind of came to be was I was like, these people over here need to hear these people over here, need to hear the lessons they've learned, what they're doing right, because sometimes it's just a minor tweak, but it's really nice. What you guys are doing is the ability to bounce it off of someone. So in the format of one of these meetings, like you're saying with the Shine group, a business owner can come with a problem, and like the way that we do it in a mastermind kind of coaching group that I'm in, you figure out the problem that you're looking to solve, and then you develop a question out of that problem that kind of leads to a specific answer, and then everyone, like you're saying, gets to provide feedback. The things that have happened in our business from doing that, it's immeasurable, right? Like, and so what do you see at these meetings and that you're putting on, and with the contractors that are getting together, what are you seeing in their businesses because of those conversations?
Yeah, it sounds similar to what you just described. I was on the phone with a guy today. He's going to do 20 million in revenue this year. A lot of it's in commercial, some residential. And he said, I have no one to talk to. He said, I'm stressed. People don't think running and owning a company is like you think it is. Yeah, it's great to make, good money by the end of the year, but there are a lot of things. And he said, I'll be honest with you, man, sometimes I want to break down and cry. He said, I have nobody to talk to. I can't talk to my sales guys about these issues. I don't want to talk to my spouse about it all the time. I said, man, that's one of the priceless things about joining our group is you get to be part of a monthly mastermind meeting. You have other seasoned owners to talk to, and everyone is growth minded. And that's a key to a healthy group. I mean, if you want to be a part of something that's valuable, there's nothing to prove. Everybody's got to leave their ego at the door. We've all been there where you go to talk to somebody about your business and they act like they're a hot shot and like you're stupid for not being at their level. All it makes you want to do is never talk to that person again. You don't gain any wisdom from it. So with ours, that's one of the things we say at the outset is, hey, check your ego at the door. None of us have arrived. We all have a lot to learn from one another. And so let's help one another. We actually have an opportunity here to give and receive, but you're going to get out of it what you put into it.
Business ownership can be lonely. Like it really can be a lonely journey. People don't understand that because there are so many things that are created and like that are in your bubble. And sometimes you don't have the opportunity to speak to your employees about some of the challenges that you may be facing. You don't want to cause a disruption in the team or them to start, worrying about what's happening on some operational stuff or finance things that you're dealing with. You definitely don't want to bring it home every day because that's not healthy. Right. And so that's awesome. So in these CEO groups, mastermind groups, it's really nice to be able to find, and like what we were saying, that, there's some others that are springing up, and it seems like this is, I don't know, a trend in business, people sharing. Maybe it's because, I guess the world has changed to a sharing economy and a sharing, right? Everything has opened up a lot more. But I think that this is just an amazing way to go, right? I was talking, I did a episode with Dimitri not long ago, Lipinski from Roofing Insights and Roofing Business School. And he was saying, when I started my company, there was nothing, right? I've had Becca Switzer on a couple of times, and she was like, when I started in roofing sales, there was nothing. And now there's an abundance of information and assistance in your business. How do you think that contributes to the growth of people, and how can people use all of this to accelerate their growth?
Yeah, I think whether you join a group like ours or another, you need to be a part of a mastermind. If you're operating in isolation, we've all heard it said before, your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
Most of us, if you read a lot of leadership books, You'll also come across lines that say you're the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or you're, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. All these concepts, they're repeated, whether you're reading, John Maxwell or any of these guys, these books on my shelf here. It's the same concept that if you want to be wise, I mean, if you were going to build a house and you'd never built a house before, and you could either go do it on your own by watching YouTube videos, or you could sit with 10 other home builders and say, how would you do this? Option B is much better. Option A of you doing it on your own is you're going to make much more costly mistakes. It's going to take you way longer, and the end result's not going to be as good. So by joining a mastermind group and bouncing ideas off other owners, I mean, we all need that. I know for me personally, the most pivotal moments in my life have been because of conversations I've had with other entrepreneurs or business owners, especially some of the older guys in my life that are seasoned, that have retired, have had amazing exits from companies they've sold. Just a 30-minute phone call has been the difference between me making a stupid decision and a wise decision. So I think whether you join a group like Limitless or not, you need to be in a group somewhere so that you're not, we're all limited. I'm limited in what I can handle and what I know. We need to remove those limits by connecting with other owners.
What are some of those specific situations, those aha moments that you've had with mentors or mastermind groups that you've been in?
I had a situation where I was looking to buy a chemical recycling company in Houston, Texas. Seemed like a real sweet deal. Owner operated. He was ready to retire. Had an edge against his competitors with his product. It just seemed like a really good deal, right? Well, I've never bought a company before. Didn't know what the heck I was doing. Didn't know how to examine all the financial documentation. So I hired a consultant, which was really helpful to lead me through that process. But I was also bouncing ideas off my business mentor, who's been a very successful business owner and is a high net worth individual in Dallas. And I was bouncing ideas off of him all along the way, right? And other guys in a group. I went to a Wednesday morning men's Bible study for years, and about 30, 40 guys would show up, and most of them are in that 55 to 65 year range. And so I would meet with these guys, take them to lunch and bounce ideas off of them. But at the end of the day, or at the end of the process, I decided to turn away from trying to buy this company. And most of it was because of feedback I received from those guys. And they said, hey, here's some huge red flags. This guy's having a hard time giving you the paperwork you need. He's having a hard time giving you reasons. You've asked why have sales fluctuated over the last 4 years. He can't really answer that. I knew I was out beyond my depth. I didn't have the skills to swim in those waters at that depth of knowledge. And they saved me. And now looking back, I am so glad I didn't just push through and make that decision. That would have been a very costly mistake.
Isn't it? It's sometimes it's that you don't know the question to ask.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
Right. In a lot of these situations, and I've had it with my mentors and coaches and things through the years, is that I didn't even know the question to ask at the time. Right. And at different stages of your business, those questions change. Some of the questions become more complex, right? Some of the questions start to become around managing and building a culture with people. Some of them are dealing with suppliers and negotiating, how you even negotiate prices that all of a sudden, really, I can do that. I can, things that you wouldn't even know because you didn't even have the knowledge yet. And it's only yet, right? I was talking, it was on a podcast recently. We were talking about that is it was a contractor who spent a good amount of money on coaching. And he said, man, I'm going to spend the money one way or another. It's either going to be through the mistake that I make or through the to this coach or consultant. And I'd rather do it this way. I'd rather get the right information when I need it. And I thought that was an amazing point.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. So, your background, you have a lot of leadership background. And companies change as they grow, and early on, sometimes they're, in the early stages of business, leadership and culture and things like that don't manifest themselves because you're just surviving. But then you realize at some point in your business that a business is just the people within it, right? You may have a product or service that you do, but it's this team of people that you've cultivated that really are the heart of the business. Speak to some of the kind of things from a leadership perspective that once you hit that realization, maybe some things that you should, put into place or start to really, start executing on once you realize, wow, okay, I have a team here. I have people that need me to be a leader.
I think there's two major things with your leadership, and there's who you are as a leader, and then there's what you do. And the who you are part, that's your personal pilgrimage in leadership. And we all need a compass to guide us in that. I mean, how do you know who's the kind of person you want to be? Where are you getting that direction? When I was in my undergrad, we had a leadership compass business model that we worked through. It was actually from a guy named Andy Seidel, who taught leadership at West Point to all the West Point students. And the program was called Charting a Bold Course. And there's a picture of somebody standing in a boat, with a looking glass. And we learned the leadership compass developed by Andy Seidel. And the compass had 4 points to it, north, south, east, west. And north stood for character. East stood for vision. South stood for skills. And West stood for relationships. And over the course of a year, every paper we read, whether it was from Harvard Business School, or a lot of this stuff was articles based on Christian thought and all these different sources, all it did was build out the compass, but it all came back to character. And the point with all the teaching that our professors taught was that no matter how skilled you are, no matter how great your vision is, no matter what kind of relationships you have, if people trust you and are willing to follow you anywhere, if you have a critical failure in character, all of it will come crumbling down. Mm-hmm. And so that was the thing, I think, to answer your question is you've got to decide that you are going to be someone who people admire, because they're going to forget 90% of what you say, but they're never going to forget what it's like to be around you. And I think you've got to decide, I'm going to be the kind of leader that's a blessing to other people. I want to make a positive impact on others and serve and empower them. It's servant leadership. There's a book on that too. I forgot the name of the author, but I'm going to be a servant leader. I'm going to lead for the good of others, truly, every day. And if you make that decision and make that your true north, that your character, that's going to be your purpose, the kind of person you're going to be, all the other will follow with it.
So how would one go about saying, this is the person that I want to be to others?
Well, for me, it's easy. I believe in biblical Christianity, so I've got a few examples there that make it easier for me. Obviously, I believe Jesus was the perfect leader, but even him as an example of a servant leader, right from the beginning, when he started calling people to be his disciples, he said, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." So he kind of cast a vision for them, even at the outset, "Follow me, and I will make you." So I think as a leader, not that obviously for a lot of people, Jesus is not their model, but whoever your example is of just a great model that you admire, even in your own personal life. I've got a guy, one of my business mentors, passed away recently. He was the president of a big private insurance firm, I think the biggest in the US, if not one of the biggest in the US. And, so a very high net worth individual, very high demand, very busy. But man, every time I got around Dan, he was just cutting it up and being silly, asking me how my wife and girls were. He wanted to get to know me, cared about me, like that whole, like people say, they don't care how much you know, they only, the people want to know that you care, not the reverse. He was always like that. You just knew Dan just cared a lot about you. And at his funeral, so many people said that about him. And I think of him sometimes. I think, man, I need to I just kind of got a little too intense in this situation over here. How would have Dan handled that? Dan would have been so much more lighthearted. He would have been very clear.
Yeah.
He's not a pushover. He's very
Yeah.
clear. He's a leader at a big company, but he would have been so much more lighthearted, and he would have made it so much more fun. So I think whether it's from the Bible or somebody you know in life, you got to find somebody that you really admire that you can say, that's a good example of how I want to be in this way.
Yeah. Looking at others, looking at this is the type of leader that I would want to be. You kind of, you can look at that, from maybe a sports analogy, you would say that's the kind of coach I want to be when I get to that level. Or even as a player, that's the type of player I want to get to when I get to that level. So look at the business owners around you. Look at, look at other people in your industry, outside of your industry. Say, yeah, there's a few things about that person that people follow that person. Now it was, there was character. What was the next one?
The next one's vision. So what's your
Vision.
plan? Where are you taking people? How are you going to get there? And I think having a clear vision is critical, because if there's no great why, everybody wants to be a part of something special. Everybody wants to be a part of something meaningful. So if you don't have a clear vision of, hey, here's where we're headed. Here's why it's amazing to be a part of our company. Here's why it matters. Here's the impact you're going to make on homeowners, on customers, or whatever. Then people are just showing up to work to make more sales.
Yeah.
That's not sticky. There's another roofing company down the street that's got a better vision than that. And I read a book one time called Visioneering by Andy Stanley. And he had a great analogy in the beginning. And he said, casting a clear vision is the difference between telling people to fill bags with sand on the beach and telling them to build a dike to save a city because a storm's coming. It's the same exact action required by the people, two completely different visions. Well, in fact, one has no vision at all. Yeah. So you need to have a vision. It needs to matter. I mean, if I know that somebody's calling me, hey, come over here, work hard with us for the next 2 weeks. We're going to build a dike and it's going to save this city. A flood is coming and you can save thousands of lives. Well, all of a sudden I've got energy behind that. And that menial task of filling bags with sand means so much more now. And I think a lot of leaders don't realize the power of casting a clear vision and getting that emotion. Not that they need to be emotional, but there's emotion tied to that vision.
That makes me think of short-term vision and long-term vision, though, right? When you're talking about filling sandbags or building like a permanent dike for long-term, like how do you manage the long-term vision with it and the short-term vision? Because there are short-term menial tasks that need to be accomplished for us to get to this large vision. What are your thoughts on helping people in that regard?
Yeah, to be effective, like you mentioned, you've got to do the day-to-day. You got to be effective at both. I mean, you need to have a clear vision. We even taught in our CEO groups. I was an EOS implementer, so we took roofing owners through the whole EOS program, which is EOS worldwide, and people can, a lot of people have read the book Traction by Gino Wickman. But what that whole program boils it down to is a 90-day world that, you cast a vision. You give people what they call a state of the company address. You get everybody together in one big room or one big meeting place. You share your vision for the year, but that vision gets broken down into 90-day goals, because that's something that people can digest. You can live in a 90-day world and say, hey, for the next 3 months, you, Mr. VP of Sales, or you, our operations manager, here is the 5 things that are mission critical for you to tackle over the next 3 months. And we're going to have weekly meetings to make sure we're on track to hit our 90-day goals. And if we hit our 90-day goals, we're going to hit our annual goal.
Definitely. So breaking things down into small chunks. We run EOS in our business. It's an amazing way of managing that day to day and prioritizing the next thing. It's so effective. The next thing is the skills, right? So now we have to develop. Is it in developing our team skills, developing our own skills, or both?
It's developing, well, for us specifically, what we speak to in our group is developing your skills as a leader. I mean, your people have to constantly develop as well, and training should be a regular part of being a part of any company. But I'll ask guys, what do you think are the top 2 to 3 critical skills you need as a leader, as the owner of the company? And the answers can be interesting. But according to EOS Worldwide, one of the top skills you need is to simplify, because your company is constantly getting more complex. Another critical skill is delegate, or like the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko, they call it decentralize. It's the same thing. It's just delegation. Yeah. But I think like you mentioned, prioritize. I think one of the critical skills is prioritizing, and the other one that doesn't get talked a lot about is communication. How well do you communicate with people? Because the challenge is, as the owner of a roofing company, if you've been in the business 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you've got 10, how many years of data stored in your brain about roofing, sales, operations, customers. You have all this information that you're not having to relearn. And then you hire somebody new and you expect them to just get it in a short meeting. And you run the risk of oversimplifying things, and then also getting frustrated or becoming impatient for people when they ask for more details. There's a lot of owners of roofing companies out there that make that mistake. They oversimplify, and they don't take into account how much they know that they don't have to learn. And so when they hire somebody new, they just don't have the patience. And again, just looking back at what is your goal as a leader, if you want to serve and empower others, you need to really think about what kind of expectations you have for them to get caught up to speed.
I've been guilty of that.
Everybody has.
Right. Like, man, it's so simple. Why didn't we execute on that? But it comes down to, I have 2 decades of experience in web development and internet digital marketing and different things. And and so it's easy for me to say, this is what we do. It's real easy, right? Like it's every business owner is gonna, they're so you have it all. Like you said, it's right there in it's subconscious a lot of times now, right? You don't even have to think about it. It's just something that you do on a day-to-day basis. So what was the last one?
The last one's relationships. So west is relationships. Yep. So character is north, vision is east, south is skills, and west is relationships. And the cool thing that we did when we were in our program in my undergrad is we put together what happens when you combine a strong character and a healthy vision. Well, you motivate, right? What happens when you combine a clear vision with the right skills? Well, then you actually serve and empower. But what happens when you put the right character and the right relationships together? You earn trust. When people trust who you are and you have a healthy relationship with them, they'll follow you to the end. Even if you make mistakes, as you make mistakes, they will continue to follow you because they trust you. And they know that you have their best interest at heart. But having healthy relationships is another one of those deals where, man, all of us really need ongoing training in that. We need to learn how to love people. We need to learn how to be kind, respectful, how to be good listeners, how to ask good questions. So it's but going back to what I said at the outset, I think if nobody, if I only had one thing to say about all of this, I would say people are going to forget 90 to 95% of what you say, but they're never going to forget what it's like to be around you. So you better be focused on having the best relationships possible with your team.
Yeah, definitely. And that character really affects those relationships, right? I think those two really go together, right? Like, the relationships that you build are built off of that, the character that you built, but even the character within your company in dealing with problems, because when you're in the trades or in any business, stuff happens. And it's always how you deal with them that makes it, that shows that character. And when you have a client, a homeowner, that knows and trusts your character, when that thing happens and something goes wrong, they don't blow you up on Google and Facebook reviews. They reach out to you and they say, man, I know you have the best intention. Something happened here. I have a leak. Can you come back and check it out? Instead of, feeling like you have ill intent. There's a difference in how, that customer company relationship is even built in that manner, right?
It's so good. Yeah. I mean, if you're making friends, building long-term relationships, lifelong relationships with the people who work with you or the people you work for, that's a totally different conversation when you make a mistake. And I like what you said too about people are watching how you respond when something goes wrong. That really exposes your character. I mean, I know for me, one of the big things for me is having the humility to say, I'm sorry. I mean, I can get really focused, laser focused, and get too intense about something that I think is really important. And bring that intensity and that impatience to a conversation. And now I've alienated somebody that I care about, somebody that I'm working with. Well, I try to keep quick accounts. I don't want to let 5 minutes elapse to build any kind of, I don't want anything to sprout up, any kind of bitterness there, anything. So I'll say, you know what? I was impatient. I'm taking this a little too seriously. I'm sorry for being rude to you. Will you forgive me? And it does two things. It completely disarms my friend who I'm working with or this person I'm interacting with, but it sets me free too.
Yeah.
It gives me a chance to say, hey, I'm not perfect. I haven't arrived. I messed up there. And it sets us both free. And I think you got to have an environment where you have the humility and if you have a healthy identity, it shouldn't hurt your ego too much to be able to say, I'm sorry. None of us are perfect.
That's a great one. I learned that lesson young, fortunately, where it's, I made a mistake. I apologize. What can I do to help, mend this, whether it's within a relationship or within a business dealing? And just that alone, it amazes me that people, the stubbornness in people that when they won't do that, like you're saying, it just lifts everything. It lifts away like a lot of the tension, right? And it's in the humility of being able to say that, because we're not all perfect. Yeah. We're going to make mistakes. No matter if you're going to build, a few hundred roofs a year, 1,000 roofs a year, 2,000 roofs a year, stuff's going to happen, right? Yeah. And then that brings it back to your character as a leader, because sometimes it's not your fault. It's the crew, and maybe it's even the crew leader didn't know that this guy wasn't going to show up today, or this guy showed up and didn't perform well, or like there's so many moving parts, but just being able to express that sets you apart, right? What other, things can you do along the way? Like, I know we were talking a little bit also the other day about like things are changing in business, especially now, with the cost of materials and labor increasing, and there's so many things that are happening that it could get scary, right? I see, working with a lot of roofing companies, we see, the average net profit to the owner in that 8 to 12% range. You may get a little higher if you're on the kind of in a startup mode and you're doing everything yourself, and but a couple of changes in pricing here or there, that could hurt, right? What are the things that you're seeing in the cost of doing business in the marketplace right now?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that's a challenge we talk about all the time with members of our free Facebook group, members of our purchasing group. And, like you said, your bottom line is shrinking all the time. Material, the manufacturers sending letters every quarter about material prices going up. And so to offset that, you need to figure out ways to get the best deals possible with vendors and suppliers Whether it's teaming up with a small group of other owners or joining a group like ours. We launched a group purchasing organization because we saw, again, an opportunity to do something that hardly anybody was doing. And the members of our group actually get to enjoy the benefits of some pretty significant discounts with vendors. And they also get to be part of a very generous rebate program through our supplier partners. So, Guy, when we talk to owners about joining our group, we say, look, as your bottom line is shrinking, we can actually start expanding it quite a bit again and get you some stability as the market conditions are getting worse. So yeah, it's just something to think about as you're an owner, is to really step back and say, how can I be strategic about my purchases? Where can I streamline? Where can I improve my bottom line? And of course, a group like ours, the Limitless GPO, is designed to do exactly that.
So what are some things that you're seeing in the marketplace that contractors are being successful with in streamlining? I know we, like with the GPO, if group purchasing organization, for those who don't know the acronym, there's the discounts with the suppliers, right? That's a way to do that. What other ways are you seeing contractors streamline their finances?
I think one of the best ways is reviewing your numbers, looking at everything you're doing. Everybody should have a scorecard. We use an analogy that if you were on a remote island and you couldn't touch anything in your business, but you wanted to know how your business was going, you wanted to know exactly what was happening, what are the 5 to 7 critical numbers that somebody could hand you, that somebody could just drive by on a boat and drop off to you as the owner of the company? What are the 5 to 7 critical numbers that you need to know about your company and know how it's doing? Another thing, obviously, is, so everybody should know that. Like, if you don't have a clear answer to that and you can't answer that immediately, then it's time to review it and come up with those 7 numbers. You got to know your numbers. The second thing is, we deal a lot with experts in the financial world, whether it's somebody who has outsourced CFO services, CPAs who also do accounting and wealth management. We're big fans of working with experts who can come in and say, hey, look, we're looking at all this. We see some major gaps here, here, and here. You could save a lot of money there. I mean, I just met with a guy last week that's going to save me a whole lot of money this year on my tax return because he's an expert, and I know I'm incredibly limited. So I think you owe it to yourself as the owner of a company to constantly surround yourself with people who are very wise about the financial side of your business.
Those are some things that I've been seeing in the market recently. We hired a fractional CFO, right?
Yeah,
So
gotcha.
we didn't hire a full-time CFO. We have a fractional CFO. And so seeking that expert advice, and we hired a fractional CFO who is skilled in our business, And so they have a very deep understanding of where labor costs should be in relation to marketing costs and software costs and different things like that. And that was extremely helpful. And, of course, going into the tax side of things, if you have the right tax professional that knows all of the things that you can do within the laws, because that's all tax code is people call it refer to it as, like, not tax evasion, that would be criminal, but that you're trying to not pay your fair share. But really, you're only paying your fair share when you're paying the exact amount that's owed based on the laws on the books. So if you didn't utilize those laws on the books to pay your fair share, you overpaid.
Right. Yeah. And everybody wants to every business owner wants to reduce their tax liability. And like the guy that I'm working with is very well respected in Dallas. He works only with business owners. And I mean, my mind was blown by the end of our 90-minute meeting on just at the outset, the things he wanted to do to change my situation, stuff I'd never even thought of. Yeah. And he said, this is all by the books. This is all basically just maximizing the law around taxes.
Exactly.
And it was great. So I think, I think it's good to get an outside opinion. Mm-hmm. Relationships is key, of course. But I talk to a lot of people that their wife is doing their books or their taxes or their friend or their so-and-so. And you need somebody who's checking them. who's holding them accountable, who's looking for blind spots in them. So I think, like you mentioned, having a fractional CFO or whatever it is, get one or two other people looking in on that situation every year and make sure that you're maximizing your abilities there. Remove the limits on your current
That's right.
situation. Not to, I don't want to overdo the word limitless here, but I mean, that's what it's all about, is
Yeah.
removing the limits on your current capabilities.
Yeah, definitely. And all of these things, all of these little things are going to really help. We may, depending on how the economy goes and the inflationary period goes, like this could get ugly for a while, right? Like it could balance out and everything is fine. But I guess I've heard it a couple of times, like the bundle of the price of shingles doesn't go back down a lot of times, right? Like it's now we're here. And so it's time to make those adjustments in that. And then, you know, leveraging the relationships you have with your suppliers. I know clients of ours that went in this year and they weren't taking meetings with other vendors, but they decided to this year. And then they brought the kind of the proposal from one vendor back to the other vendor and said, hey, what can you do here? We have a relationship with you. We want to stay with you, but is there anything that we can do? And sometimes you can, sometimes it happens that you can, sometimes you can't, but you had the conversation, right? And then, getting involved, major, we work with ICO Roof Pro partners. They have, incentives that they give, with the buying group that you guys have. There's incentive from your purchasing. So making sure that you're utilizing all of the opportunities that are available to you to get, hey, that extra 0.5% here or 1% there. It's big money at the end of the day.
Oh, it really adds up, especially if you're spending 1, 2, 5 million a year on materials. If you can increase that by 1 point, it makes a significant difference. So
That's right.
when we saw the opportunity to create a group purchasing organization, it came about because I was in healthcare for a couple of years, and there's hundreds of GPOs or group purchasing organizations in healthcare. And I asked my business partner, I said, where are the GPOs in roofing? He's like, what's a GPO? And I was like, what? And I started asking other people, like, hey, have you ever heard any GPOs in roofing? Whoa, what do you mean by GPO? And I was like, oh my gosh, can this be real? And I thought, you know what? That's something that doctors are really good at. They're really good at coming together, and bringing about training and buying power and stuff like that. And so we started looking into it and reaching out to different suppliers, and we were just really blown away by our supplier partner, SRS Distribution, really, and how they answered all of our questions, how they responded, how creative they were as we thought together on how to form a GPO or how to work with the Limitless GPO. But yeah, if you're, there's a big difference. Even if, like, let's say you're shopping for healthcare. If you go to get a healthcare plan for your family, you're going to have a much different conversation than if you were to go with 300 people saying, hey, we want a self-funded healthcare plan. The terms are different. The conversation's different. Everything about it's different. So I would challenge everybody out there listening to this to look into it, because you could stand to save a lot of money and make a lot of money.
Definitely. And again, it's kind of like your taxes. Take advantage of what's already there. Right? Like these opportunities that are already there, take advantage of all of them. And that's what really the most successful business owners are really good at, those details and keeping all of those, right? And getting all of the benefit that they can, because that also creates a competitive advantage in your business over your, the other contractors in your area who may not be as detailed on this, right? You have more marketing dollars to invest because of that. You have other, there's so many things that you could do. You may be able to hire that, that inside salesperson to really maximize your lead flow and book appointments properly and do, that increase your sales. That there's so many things that you can do, but you have to be taking advantage of those opportunities first.
So good, man. Don't Don't get left behind.
Don't. So I always like to ask, what is the greatest insight that you could share with our audience that you think would help them find success in their roofing business?
It's more of an ideal, and I think it's kind of, it can be kind of a gut punch for anybody listening to this that just wants to hustle and be successful in business above all. And that is, make an A in life, even if that means making a B or a C in business. And there's a lot of people out there that I talk to that they're making an A in business. They're making 10 million a year, 20 million a year gross revenue. The owner gets to go out and buy a Lambo or whatever, Acura NSX or a Platinum F350 Super Duty Ford truck. But their marriage is on the rocks. Or they're too busy for their kids and their kids are in front of an iPad all the time. So you're making a C or a D or maybe even an F in the most important relationships in your life, but you're making an A in business. So, but really, if you were to grade your life at the cumulative score of all the areas of your life, your own identity, your relationship with the people you love the most, your physical health, your personal finances and business, you'd have to say, man, I'm really making a D at life, even though I've got an A in this one class, which is business. So that's what I challenge people with is, man, make an A in life, even if that means making a B in business to you. Maybe you think normal is working 60 hours a week and constantly growing, whatever amount percentage every single year. Maybe you need to dial that back and rejuvenate your marriage. Because I've got some business mentors here in Dallas. I can think of a couple right now that have had big exits from business. And I mean, big by Dallas standards, you guys have sold companies for hundreds of millions of dollars, and they've gotten divorces and heart attacks in the process of growing those companies. So there's just you can't redo this, right? I mean, unless reincarnation is real, to my knowledge, I've only been to this earth once and I'm not coming back. You only get one chance. So make an A in life.
That's awesome, man. Well, we'll put the links to get and check out Limitless CEO Group in the bios, in the descriptions here. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you would like to generate more sales through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com and get a copy of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors: How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thanks for listening.